York. Frantic distress signals across wireless code had been received by the radio operator of the RMS Carpathia. Something, or someone, had caused the Titanic to plummet into the frigid depths of the Atlantic. Out of her personnel of 2,224 souls, only 710 survivors of Titanic's wreckage were recovered. They told strange tales to their rescuers of rumored curses from far-off lands and an out-of-control plumbing accident that engulfed the entire ship. The United States Senate would later conduct an inquiry of the disaster the day following Carpathia's arrival in New York. Officials wasted no time threatening the survivors with perjury if they did not support a party line of an iceberg collision.
What most Titanic historians have conveniently forgotten or have glossed over is the fact that the Titanic actually carried historical relics of mystical natures. It's only natural that the London Museum of Antiquities would have chosen this vessel for the daughter of Pharaoh's mummy.
Long before he had finally discovered the tomb of Tutankhamun in 1922, the renowned archaeologist Howard Carter had been competing for notoriety with his French nemesis Philippe Letarque. Both men hated one another passionately, and when Letarque finally excavated the tomb of Pharaoh Akhenaten's eldest daughter Amon-Ra, Carter's team of hired Arabs wasted no time stealing the mummy from the Frenchman's camp and shipping it back to the Museum of Antiquities. It had been July of 1910, and now the New York Metropolitan Museum had purchased rights to display her in 1912. Because she was priceless, and because her whereabouts dare not be known to angry French authorities, her presence on the Titanic was meant to be a secret known only to Captain Smith and his staff. It was assumed the Titanic's leak-proof compartments virtually guaranteed her safe delivery. It was decided that her corpse be stored along with other historic artifacts that Letarque had originally found, and Carter and his band of hired thieves would take credit for.
Of course, Captain Smith, who had read Egyptian mythology to pass the time in Britain's Naval Academy, understood the reputation of Princess Amon-Ra. He was not naturally a superstitious man, but he was overheard by his crew about his misgivings of the mummy's presence and this feeling of creeping dread that came to him the moment she had been hand-carted off the gangplank and onto the deck. Rumors spread among the officers who shared these feelings. Amon-Ra had been something of a priestess who had fanatically embraced the sun-worshipping cult of her father, Pharaoh Ahanran. Of course, because she was a girl, chauvinistic historians refer to her vaguely at best. It seems that she would have inherited her father's position because many of her fiercest zealots had assassinated her more moderate brothers and sisters. She would have at least been as well known as Nefertiti or Cleopatra had her royal barge not sunk after grazing a rock on the Nile. According to the legend, when priests preparing her body for mummification attempted to pump out the river water from her drowned lungs, writhing masses of black scarab beetles poured out of her mouth. It's not the kind of myth I would want to tell my children.
Rumors surrounding Princess Amon-Ra told that her vengeful spirit would always seek a watery grave on her defilers at the 12th year of each century. These rumors would not spare museum curators or janitors, and Titanic's crew would certainly not be immune to them.
My great-uncle remembered the voyage quite well. Once in a blue moon, he'd pour a bottle of whiskey in front of the fireplace and tell his boys about it. He shared a cabin with his wife, Lindsay, and the first night after embarking, she turned to him in bed and says, "Sweetie, do you notice the crew of this here tin can?" And he turned back to her and said, "No, dear, I can't say that I have." "Well," says my great aunt, "you know, they keep talking about this rubbish, a cursed Egyptian mummy to each other. They're whispering to each other, you know, but I can still hear them." Then Uncle Sped says something like, "Oh, now you're just imagining things, dear. Now just go to sleep." And she says, "Tommy, honey, you don't think this ship is cursed, do you?" I mean, these were the kind of conversations my great uncle told us about when we was up drinking and rambling about that god-awful wreck of a ship.
These rumors of fear and dread would spread from crew to passengers as HMS Titanic plunged through the Atlantic to America. It is human nature to fear what we do not know. It is also human nature to increasingly take relaxing baths and showers when we feel stress, or perhaps when we feel a certain filth in the air that can be as psychic as it is physical. Who could predict that overuse of Titanic's already poorly designed plumbing system would lead to a disaster far worse than mass paranoia of a wrathful maiden from ancient times? While today we credit an abnormally large iceberg with Titanic's fate, survivors tell a far stranger, far more elaborate tale, not of natural occurrences, but of supernatural occurrences. We may never know what the fate was of that vessel. It is not our intent to make you believe, but rather to draw your own conclusions of the incident. What had truly been the fate of the pride of the first ocean liners? Why was the unlikely tale of a freak iceberg at a latitude of 41 degrees circulated with such enthusiasm by government and press of both the United States and Great Britain? What is the story behind the scenes of what we have assumed? Can the truth finally be released after a century of intimidation and cover-up? In this episode of Truth or Conspiracy,